Hello, and welcome to a brand new series right here on this channel. For lack of a better name, this is Daemon Time, the House of the Dragon rewatch review podcast right here on this channel. I'm joined by Max Toscano, one of the other major Game of Thrones fans I know. There are a lot of Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire fans out there, but Max, is Max is Max. How would you classify your Game of Thrones fandom? How do you rate yourself?
It's pretty advanced. Honestly, I think it's probably like a rung or two below like the big like the essay writer types.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
You haven't gotten quite there yet, but you're
yeah.
close.
No, I don't think I'll ever do that, but like
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's a rung below them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I would put myself in a similar boat. I know a lot of the theories, but I haven't invented any of them, and I'm in the middle of my second ASOF reread, so
oh, you're only on two? Oh, okay.
so that's where we're at. I started as a show watcher and then became something of a book snob, and not a full book snob, but a little bit. Have you've always been a little bit more book snobby? Is that correct? Is that correct?
I started as a show watcher in like 2014, and I
Mm,
really just obviously loved it. And so I just went, and that's sort of what happens when I get interested in something. I get really interested in it. So
mm-hmm,
I read all the books. I did like read all the fan theories and the essays and all that, super nerdy stuff.
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, I just keep reading the books. Like I just keep doing it over and over and over almost.
They
Uh, and I
are.
wouldn't have to do that, obviously.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They're well made for
I
reread.
wouldn't have to do that if there were, another book.
That is true.
Uh,
That is true. We'll probably get into that as the series goes on, but we're not here to talk about yet me coping about how Winds of Winter will probably almost certainly maybe come out. You guys, did you see this? You see this latest post? There's definitely hope. There's definitely hope. While you speak with reason and logic and say it's never coming out. Well, we'll get
You're
we'll
owning with facts and logic.
we won't get to that just yet. Instead, we're talking about the brand new spin-off series, House of the Dragon, like the new prequel series set. And I love this thing 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen, and they underlined it and put flashing lights on for everyone to just shout, "Hey, idiots! This is before Daenerys, okay? Do you get that? Do you get that, idiots?" I definitely liked it, but I think we should just start off from the beginning. Max, what did you think of this first episode of House of the Dragon?
You
And
know,
what?
I gotta say, as somebody who didn't just hate season 8 of Game of Thrones, I hated like 5 onward. I thought they were all terrible, and I don't think season 8 was distinguishably worse. I thought they were all just well, it didn't have the high points that like season 5 and 6 had, uh,
Mm-hmm,
but it
mm-hmm,
was still they were all a nightmare. So my bar for judgment is very low. I
mm-hmm,
very prone to disliking these adaptations. However, I thought House of the Dragon episode 1 was quite excellent. Uh,
mm-hmm,
I thought they did a really good job with it. I thought they really understood the assignment, unlike previous adapters of the series. They like George's input was very obvious and clearly extremely involved.
mm-hmm.
Uh, like they really understood the characters. They understood the sort of the nature of the conflict. They understood they really just understood the assignment. And I thought that, despite the fact that it was a very dark, very joyless episode of high drama, it was really excellent. And I
Yeah.
thought that like, if you told me that George R. R. Martin himself like wrote every single word of that episode, I would totally believe you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, although in the sense that like he did write Fire and Blood, which is just incredibly dry.
Mm-hmm.
And this is it's high drama. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's certainly not going to be light. It's not going to really be for everyone, I think, but at the same time, it's objectively just high end storytelling that is super faithful to the source material. And where it isn't is an addition rather than a subtraction.
Yes.
Which is the hallmark of a good adaptation, of course. So I'm super pleased with it. I really just hope it keeps this up and doesn't, try to, doesn't get cold feet. I hope the creators didn't get cold feet on their vision about halfway through the season, because I think that would be a huge mistake. What they've got is really good.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I definitely we'll get to him in a bit, but I was originally a little skeptical on the series. I didn't know how it would turn out. I was one of those people who I liked season 6 and I sort of liked season 7, but then in season 8, I retroactively disliked season 7. I think 6 at least has a lot of high moments to mask its faults, but then those high moments become less and less until it peters out by season 8. But regardless, I was uncertain about how this would be. But then, like, a lot of the promotional material and just hearing George R. R. Martin speak on it was making me more intrigued. And I think the show kind of learned one of the best lessons it could learn, which is George R. R. Martin's influence is good, and they should go with that when adapting it for a TV show. And I feel it works for this, but also knowing when to change. I think one aspect I want to talk about with you. George R. R. Martin said repeatedly, which I found fascinating, and I think so far I might have to agree with him. He called Patty
Considine, yeah, I believe.
Considine, thank you. Patty Considine's Viserys better than the version on the page in Fire and Blood. He called it much better. I think I do have to agree with him on that. But what do you think of Pat?
I totally agree with Martin on that. I think and that's partially his fault, because Varys in Fire and Blood is a total passenger at best.
Yeah, he's the guy before the day.
Right. He's sort of just like, a story device. He's not an interesting character. He's basically like, with his sort of augment, it's his sort of like accompanying material. Like World of Ice and Fire, like Fire and Blood. A lot of the new stuff is basically just repackaged versions of things from the regular story. So I think, for instance, Viserys was sort of like Robert in the sense that, like, his he's blind to all of the scheming and drama that was going to explode after his death around him. He's absent, he's disinterested, he's drinking all the time.
Jovial, but not good at ruling, kind of.
Right. And with his, super like capable hand doing a lot of and we'll get to that a little bit later. Doing almost all the governing. He's less, I think he's in the books, he was in Fire and Blood particularly, he was just as well as the Princess and the Queen and the Rogue Prince, little novellas, sort of. Well, not really novellas, but like accompanying material. That Fire and Blood is, at least this part of it, is based on. He's not as, as sort of flamboyant and loud necessarily as Robert, but he's sort of that, passenger who is oblivious, who is,
to the
just holding things together, whose mere presence holds things together to a degree, but he's just, allowing this sort of storm to brew. In the show, or at least in House of the Dragon, Viserys is himself a dynamic character. He is interested in ruling, but not comically inept, but interested in ruling and somewhat well-meaning, but inadequate. He's not good. He's just not good enough. And despite, I think the best of intentions, he's been burdened and we'll talk about this as well. He's been burdened with this unbelievable responsibility in Aegon's prophecy, and as well as ruling the kingdom and dealing with all these schemers. And it just takes a way higher end game player and way higher end, I think, human mind, interpersonal mind, political mind to deal with. And Viserys is just, he falls short in just all of these ways instead of just being sort of a husk. And it was interesting with Robert when they did it because of what he was and what he fell from.
Yeah.
But with Viserys, he just sort of starts like that.
Yeah.
He's not really like, he's just not an interesting character. He's a total passenger. In this show, again, he's dynamic. He's well intentioned but deeply flawed. Like his decision to go ahead with the C-section of Emma Aaron. I thought that was a great scene, a gripping scene of him just, again, being burdened by in large part the prophecy, being burdened by the position and need to produce a male heir imposed on him by society, by Westerosi society, and just failing in the face of it. And I think that is just that's a more interesting character to me. And I think that we can talk more about Emma Aaron in a little bit, but like I thought they did a really good job showing, like, because in the books he married her when she was 12. It was all it was very disgusting. He had no necessarily, like, there was no detailing about their relationship, nor like would any of it be.
George R. R. Martin has a sick mind.
Right, but like no detail, because like their relationship is inherently, obviously, by I think decent standards, entire illegitimate regardless of how they interacted, because of Emma Aaron being almost sold to him like property at such an inappropriate age, and he just basically continued to like make her try to produce an heir, despite the fact that the pregnancies were having a dramatic toll on her health. They touched on that in the show before the C-section, but Emma Aaron was just a abused, mistreated, forgotten character, forgotten part of the story. And I think here, putting that sort of, making Viserys less of a just I do this because of the politics, whatever, not an interesting person, sort of do it just be a flawed person under the pressure of all that. And of course, aging up Emma Aaron makes that doable, because if he didn't do that, it would be like, who cares? No matter what, he's just a monster. But I thought,
it feels more real to have her be aged. It's sort of like, it feels somewhat like what it must have been like.
You needed to humanize Viserys, even though Viserys is deeply flawed. So I think the portrayal of Viserys is a complicated, flawed, very human character, instead of just the narrative passenger and generally wildly unsympathetic character he's in the books. Is a great choice. I think you needed somebody really good to pull that off, and they obviously got that. And so I think it's very long-winded, but I think George R. R. Martin is right. This version is way better, more interesting, because Viserys in Fire and Blood, and granted, Fire and Blood itself is dry, but Viserys in Fire and Blood, Princess of the Queen, Rogue Prince, all that stuff is just a speed bump to get to the story. And that's not the case here, which is great, because he's going to be a part of this season.
They're taking the opportunity to like build on the source material, which is fantastic. And also, I mean, not directly building off of it, but I think we should, speaking of Emma Aaron and her death, we should talk about the contrast between the tournament and the C-section scene. I feel like it's a great contrast, like really well done.
I do and don't.
Oh yeah.
I think the contrast itself is pretty good, obviously, like with the symbolism that they put into everything.
The battlefield.
Great. However, the tournament scene was the worst scene in the show.
You weren't a fan.
Like, the problem is, like, it requires you to suspend your disbelief way too much, because that like in the books in, both the books proper and any accompanying materials, tourneys are not really like that. Nobody would ever send their highborn children to joust in a tourney they were going to get killed in, especially having melees where everyone dies. That pulled me out of the story.
I'll give them. They kind of give a little bit of a justification for it, but I don't disagree with you. But the justification is
nobody would fight in these. Like nobody would send their highborn children to fight in these things. Like when in a Game of Thrones, when Hugh of the Vale died, that was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like it raised Ned's suspicion dramatically. It freaked out the audience. It freaked out, Sansa, obviously, because she's a child, but like it freaked out everyone. Then when, the Mountain went after Loras Tyrell after losing to him, that was a huge breach of conduct. And that was a huge deal. And the Mountain or the Hound had to step in and stop him. And Robert flipped out because that's not supposed to happen. And throughout like history, like tourney injuries and like all that stuff have been like big deals.
Look into Henry VIII's early life if you want to learn about how
life, in like all the prequel material that George has written. It's that's if multiple, that would be I mean, like, what are they trying to start wars?
Yeah,
like, wars would be started over this. Haven't like so yeah. that was a bad scene. They screwed that up big time.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely get what you mean. I think the justification they were trying to do was saying like, oh, it's been so many decades of peace that all the knights have all this pent up rage in them. But that
fails. That fails pretty miserably.
That's a fair point. I will say I think the stunt work and choreography, like if you can remove
that's a very Game of Thrones season 8 sort of thing where you like, oh yeah, the choreography is great, the costumes are great, the visuals are great, but there's nothing under that. But like I mean, like the contrast in that it was a tourney for Emma Aaron's giving birth to this child is interesting, and how like Viserys's excitement was so palpable that he sort of counted his eggs before they hatched there. And he lost his wife and the child.
Yeah, I think it's a great it was a great story decision, I think, to make prophecy and dragon dreams more
with the Targaryen.
Like make them more. I mean, it's arguable that in like, oh, they're still there in the canon, but since Fire and Blood is written by a maester, and maesters aren't as big on that, like it, but still, nonetheless, actually letting us see the effect of prophetic dreams, I think that's this. I can imagine this will be going forward a really interesting and compelling theme for the dance itself and for everyone, every single character. Like, it'll be curious to see what events that occur in the Dance of the Dragons that we all know about, like what actually seeing them, if anything, will have new context. Obviously, it's difficult to say at this point in time. It's still far before we can say anything, but it's an interesting thing.
No, like I agree. I think House Targaryen is really in large part defined by prophecy, especially when you get to Rhaegar, whose character was good, but not just him. Like it's Rhaegar, it's Maester Aemon, who's very obsessed with it as well, and he's a maester. Like like the fact that his like the heritage of prophecy in the Targaryen family is so strong that it bleeds through Maester Aemon's maester
occupation
is and his maester occupation and mindset, that it just breaks right through it, like especially on his deathbed. Obviously he's talking about Daenerys, across the narrow sea.
Mhm.
So that was like that's necessary. And yeah, like it's Rhaegar, it's probably Summerhall, although we have to learn a lot more about that. Although I think
George, please write more. Please, we're begging you.
yeah, I mean like there's all of that. And like
And according to this, it goes all the way back to Aegon, which that.
certainly that's very far from surprising, I think.
Mhm.
Out here,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just had a pop up on another tab.
No, don't worry.
That's far from surprising. Especially since like George had hinted at it, pretty heavily. And I think that like, you know, this like that's book canon. Like
Yeah.
it also like I created on Google Docs
Mhm.
hold on, I'm gonna pull it up.
Yeah.
A master list of things within the books that this reveal clarifies. That it's not complete, but in order, and this is mostly Targaryen stuff. Well, not in order.
Yeah.
In order of when I wrote it.
Yeah.
One is Rhaegar's need for Lyanna. I suspect that it is a reinterpretation of the prophecy of what Aegon meant by quote the Song of Ice and Fire, which he definitely said in the books. I think this will be revealed in the books at
Oh
some
yeah,
point.
yeah. He does say like his
That
name
well,
is
that was
Aegon
Rhaegar.
Targaryen.
That was Rhaegar, but Aegon, the Conqueror, this is definitely going to be revealed in the book. Like that, what Viserys said to Rhaenyra is going to be revealed in the books. Second is the Good Queen Alysane's obsession with the Night's Watch and the shutting down of the Night Fort.
I didn't even think about that. That's so true.
She gave them the new gift, which is she took like land from highborn lords,
Yeah.
and gave them more territory. She,
Mhm.
like she took an incredible interest in what they did. She spent a lot of time at the wall, and very importantly, she shut down the Night Fort. Now,
Mhm.
the Night Fort was for those more casual viewers out there. The Night Fort was the original home of the Knights, or the original HQ of the Night's Watch before Castle Black.
Mhm.
And it's sort of the source of all of the sort of creepy, crawly stories about the Night's Watch.
Mhm.
Who's telling? Was it
Sam? Or well,
no? It was a chapter where Sam was there, but like it was a Bran chapter. Where
oh,
Bran, like, they
did Cold Hands tell them? No, no, no.
Cold Hands was with Sam at that point. I'm pretty sure it was Mira. I think I don't remember. It was one of the crew. It was
Yeah.
either Mira or Jojen.
Yeah.
But so they were telling Bran. Wait, no. I think it was Bran telling everybody. I don't. Regardless, it was
Yeah.
regardless. It was just a bunch of stories about the Night Fort. There was the Rat Cook. There was the I don't remember if Simeon Star Eyes and the thing that came in the night were in this chapter, because again I haven't read Storm of Swords honestly in like 3 years now. But
there's a lot of
yeah, and most importantly though, the Night's King. The Night's now this is not to be confused with the silly
the Night King, who's kind of the
HBO's original.
cartoon.
That was. It's like, oh, how do we get rid of the White Walkers easily? Well, let's give them this king guy. Anyway,
one person.
Yeah, so we can get rid of him whenever we want. But like, yeah, so the Night's King, the story of the Night's King is basically it's very the the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch glimpsed a pale woman with eyes with like blue stars from let me read the text exactly.
You have it available to yourself.
I can pull it up.
Nice.
I just want to get it exactly right.
The one line I always remember is the final one, but yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of gross, low key.
Yo, George, why do you keep making things so freaking weird?
Yeah, damn it, I can't find it.
Don't worry.
But like, so basically, he glimpsed a woman with, and I'm trying to leave the language vague as the books did, just because like there's probably some reveals to be done, in some books that aren't coming out. But
Well done.
so he glimpsed a woman with pale blue eyes from atop the wall. He chased her, he loved her. That's they say that in the story. And shit, what was the thing? The final line?
The thing I always remember is like old man said it could have been thing, but the truth is it was a Stark. Like, you know.
Oh no, that's yeah, no, that's
Mm.
yeah, maybe. But like
Oh yeah.
so basically he slept with this thing, though her like she was like cold as ice.
Yeah.
So the popular interpretation is that the Night's King's quote unquote corpse queen, which is in the they also sorry, I missed a totally important thing. Ruled over the Night's Watch, apparently with some kind of sorcery, as the story, as the legend says, for a number of years, until the King Beyond the Wall, which was Joramun at the time, which is important because of the Horn of Joramun, which aka the Horn of Winter. Go look that up if you don't know what that means.
That's what Vance is looking for, guys.
That's right. And the second guy was the King of the North, unnamed Stark. So they ganged up together and they overthrew the Night's King. And they scrubbed him from the history. There, if you look at the books, like the history of all the Lords Commander of the Night's Watch, there is no 13th. So, and then old Nan's like, oh yeah, Judy was totally a Stark, Bran, be scared. Yeah. So like
no, but so it's
story.
It has secret,
that happened at the Night Fort.
Yeah. It has secret, like cryptic, creepy shit in the back that will hopefully be revealed in Winds of Winter when it comes.
Seems to have something to do with the others.
Yeah.
As well as the Weirwood Black Gate in the basement, or the basement. There's not technically a basement, but
in the lower levels.
Yeah, in the sort of hidden lower levels. That Cold Hands tells Sam about.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's exciting to get these sorts of reveals like actually given to us. It's a whole new feeling that's like hasn't happened since 2011 technically.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. I will say there's a little bit more. So that is the castle that Queen Alysanne Targaryen shut down. She shut it down. She went all, bar rescue. She walked in, shut it down. Now that makes a whole lot of sense why she was so, uncomfortable about the Night Fort, and why she viewed the Night's Watch as so important. So that clarifies that. It clarifies obviously the quote unquote prince that was promised, from Daenerys' House of the Undying chapter, when she has a vision of Rhaegar with Elia Martell of Dorne, his wife. And their child, she says, this we get the quote for. I'm not prepared.
It's first episode, it's okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So
what'd you say?
So basically, Daenerys sees Rhaegar say to his wife Elia in the vision, quote, Aegon, he said to a woman nursing a newborn babe in a great wooden bed. What better name for a king? Will you make a song for him? The woman asked. He has a song, the man replied. He is the prince that was promised, and his is the song of ice and fire, which
Peter Griffin points at the screen.
Makes now. I mean, like, we knew it made sense, sort of. Now it's clear. Now we know exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah.
So Rhaegar also, when he was a kid, apparently read something in his scrolls that changed him. He went to the Red Keep's master at arms. I require a sword and armor. It appears I must be a warrior. So it's very clear now what he read. The Song of Ice and Fire. That's what he knows about.
Yeah.
It also obviously explains the impetus for Aegon's conquest. Why they wanted to, why they wanted to hatch a dragon at Summerhall. Although it doesn't confirm anything. That's just my theory.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and potentially even Lyanna's promise.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they did get reference indirectly at the
clearly intentionally, I would say.
It's 100% like an intentional reference, but obviously Viserys isn't. Yeah, thinking about a person he doesn't know.
Right? No, but it's George.
Yeah. Without.
I think that prophecy reveal,
Mhm.
and you know, and I've gone way on a tangent about it. I think it was frankly the most significant moment in
Mhm.
any Ice and Fire content since A Dance with Dragons came out.
Mhm.
It's huge for the books. It's
Yeah.
huge for the books.
Mhm.
Um, you know, for all those reasons and more that I just kind of mentioned.
Mhm. And
But
I'll also just say, despite all this like massive reveal, though, I still think why this episode ultimately succeeded is that they did a good job at keeping characters focused and complex. We haven't even had a chance to talk about the guy who this is named after, Daemon, because I'm ashamed that that's the title of this that we're going with. We'll find something better soon, but I like how complex like people's reaction to Daemon is, and Daemon's own complex feeling. You know, it's genuine drama between characters, and that's awesome to see rather than just spectacle. You know, it's like, oh, like the question of if Daemon should succeed, like like when I was reading the books, it's always slightly like I don't see what's the big deal if Daemon succeeds. But now it's like, oh, I get why Otto is so terrified, and it's not just Otto is a piece of crap, you know, and all that. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's
Even though he's still wrong, but
yeah.
like,
Well, no, he's not wrong,
well,
but we'll get into that.
oh yeah.
Thing, but like with Daemon, Daemon is, you know, I think is so well adapted. Like this is Daemon. He's that dark, you
Mm-hmm.
know, not necessarily more of a villain than an anti-hero, but straddles the line, I think, more than most villains do.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's still clearly a villain, but like is, you know, dark, is very charming and dashing and interesting,
Mm-hmm.
alluring, but it's obviously so dangerous, so brutal, so ambitious and cruel. He's not a Joffrey, he's not a
Yeah.
Ramsay. He's far too dark and alluring for that, whereas they are just repulsive and scary.
And smart. Daemon
Uh,
is like, despite everything, he is still like a smart person who understands
yeah,
people. Well,
yeah, well, I mean, he you will see more of that later, and especially I'd say at the end of the season.
mm-hmm.
But he's so ruthless, he's so cold, he's so alluring, he's so, you know, and that's Daemon. That's the essence of what was put forth in, you know, the Rogue Prince, his own story.
Mm-hmm.
Which I really, if you like Daemon, if you like Matt Smith's adaptation of Daemon, which we very much do, I think, um, you got to go read that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's fine. It's not. I don't think it's as good. It's certainly not as interesting, but it's solid context. It's
Oh
really,
yeah, yeah.
um, but Matt Smith as Damon is so perfect. Like, he's so good. I mean, you know, like that guy is on a heater right now. I mean, he was in Morbius, which is obviously excellent.
I am so mad that partially you, no, it's honestly mostly you.
It's exclusively me.
It's exclusively you. My mind is so poisoned with Morbius that the second it showed Damon have sex in a brothel, my mind instantly thought of that goddamn song in Morbius.
Song
It's
slaps, yeah.
unokay. I hate you, Max. How dare you do this to me? You
That
know?
was, yeah. Whoops. My bad. No, like I had the same thought,
Okay.
obviously. Like it's funny because like in all seriousness, like when Morbius came out, Matt Smith was fine, honestly. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
he was given nothing to work with, but I was like, oh, for like viewers, is this gonna be a problem? Because like, are people gonna think about Morbius the whole time? Uh, and like, is it going to ruin people's like true enjoyment of Matt Smith, or at least like taint it? Obviously, Matt Smith's Damon. Obviously, that's not the case. Matt Smith's a great actor. He wasn't bad in Morbius. He just wasn't given anything.
Mhm.
Um, he's a great actor, and he's so good as the dark, cruel, cold Daemon Targaryen. Like he
Mhm.
he is masterful. Um, I think personally the best portrayal of the character in a show full of great portrayals of characters.
Mhm.
Sensational,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Damon is going to be everyone's favorite to watch. Maybe not their favorite to root for, or their
Mhm.
favorite to, you know, sympathize with, but he is going to be the one you want on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the goal. They achieved it, nailed it. No notes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're only just scratching the surface of this iceberg. We didn't even quite be able to get to Rhaenyra and Alicent, but I think we'll certainly have more to talk about, especially them in the upcoming episodes without question. And I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited to talk about this with you and to see how they do. Let's hope they they succeed as this show goes on, But any other final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, let's
We
see.
have too much to talk about,
I know
unfortunately.
we really do. I mean, we have so much to talk about. We have so much to focus on. I think that you know, I think the stuff with Otto Hightower
Mm,
and Alicent as sort of schemers
mm.
is going to be a big deal over the next several episodes. And I think that's something we got to keep an eye on, and I'm really excited to see it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Anyway, tune in next time for the next episode of Daemon Time. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good, you guys. I'm sure there'll be other people on it, but it's mainly probably gonna be us. Anyway, tune in next time. See you.